Hello, BookTube. As unbelievable as it seems even to say so, September is halfway over. We are almost at the month of October. And October, like every other month, is full of BookTube events. But October has a huge one, a big one, Victober. Celebration of all things Victorian in the month of October is coming up. Uh, a lot of people on BookTube that I've known over the years associate Victober with autumn, and that is a bittersweet association at the very least this year in 2023, because two-thirds of Indonesia, two-thirds of Europe, and two-thirds of the United States are currently baking in high 90s Fahrenheit temperatures, daytime highs in the triple digits, 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit in mid-September, with no end in sight. Just, you have suddenly moved to Doha and you are living there, and it is simply going to be that way. So the rest of the world that's not under those heat domes, that aren't moving, well, they're having, the orange spice cafe lattes and the pumpkin spice, and they're bringing out the sweaters, and the leaves on the trees are changing. The leaves on the trees don't know that they're in the Anthropocene. They're changing anyway. And those people are probably yearning for autumn. They're not getting it. Nevertheless, the calendar stops for no man. So we are coming up to Victober. And I wanted to sort of talk about the event a little. I'll point you towards announcement videos because I'm hoping that you all join in. This is a celebration of Victorian literature, and as I've said many times on this channel, I consider the Victorian era to be the greatest explosion of human creativity in the species' history. I think it eclipses Periclean Athens, it eclipses the Italian Renaissance, and not just in terms of literature, in terms of anything that you could name. Social progress, human rights, animal protection, poetry, stage drama, scientific advancement, astronomy, biology, military hardware, military strategy, all the forms of writing, every form of writing, from biography to natural history, all of it. You name it. And the Victorians were doing it in profusion and with a greater degree of proficiency and brilliance than any group of people any time period of people had ever done before, or have ever done since. I don't know what it was. I have my theories as to what would cause such an explosion, but I don't think there's any denying the explosion itself. People sometimes thoughtlessly tend to dismiss the Victorians as antiquated, but look at the world before them, and then look at the world after them. They might be antiquated in terms of specific updates on their iPhones, but we would do a lot better with their level of creativity than we have now. So Victober has a special place in my heart in terms of BookTube events. This was created by our booktuber and author, Katie, at Books and Things. And the roster of hosts this year is Kate Howe, Blatantly Bookish, Books with Petra, and Roz at Scallydandling About the Books. And each one of the hosts contributed a prompt. Although in their announcement videos, they pretty much all say the same thing that every other host says of any major BookTube event, which is that if you just do the thing in the spirit in which it's intended, then you're participating. You don't need, the prompts are just if you want them. Some people like the challenge of prompts. But if all that you really need to do to participate in Victober is read Victorian literature of some kind or other. But the prompts are really interesting. One prompt is a book featuring a stranger or an outsider, a very prevalent theme in Victorian fiction. Another prompt is probably the most interesting one of them all, which is a book that features the so-called New Woman, which was a social idea, but also a literary fad. The social idea sparked a literary fad of women who for the first time in history looked around them and said, well, okay, but what if I want a life that does not revolve around a man at all? What if I want a life that is not a referent to some man? What if I want a life of my own, entirely of my own? I make my own living. I earn my own money. I attain a skill that will allow me to do that. I buy my own apartment. I go out for my own meals. And I don't need to refer to a man of any kind to do any of that. in the 1850s, in the 1860s, young women, it wasn't always young women, but young women were looking around and saying, well, okay, my brother is getting ready to go out in the world. He's going to be able to vote. He's going to be able to go to college. He's going to be able to stand for parliament. He's going to be able to earn his living and go where and when he pleases. And no one is talking about anything like that for me. Instead, they're talking about me as though I am a family heirloom of my father. And when the time comes, the very time when my brother is breathing the first air of freedom on his grand tour, when that time comes for me, I'm going to be bundled up and handed off to be the family heirloom of some other man. A whole bunch of women were asking suddenly, why? Why does that even need to be true? And fiction reflected that. So there are a great many. Probably the most famous example is The Odd Women by George Gissing, but there are lots of other examples. So you could do that if you want. The third prompt is to do a first-person narrative. Well, there are lots and lots of those. It was as popular a thing then as it is today. Then the next one is the next prompt is to feature a book that features class heavily. The Victorians were class obsessed, so some book that features that, where that's the turning point, where you can read a Victorian work where class features heavily, but the goal here, if you wanted to follow the real spirit of this prompt, I think, would be to read a work in which the whole of the work hinges on class. So not so much like, for instance, a book in which there is a miller and a brewer and also a duke, but rather a book in which a duke falls in love with someone and can't marry her because of class. That sort of thing. There are also plenty of those to choose from. I think that's all of the prompts. There are all kinds of bells and whistles for Victober this year. There's Goodreads, of course. There's all of these prompts. All the channels will be doing this, and all you have to do is look at the announcement videos from any of the hosts. Look in the comments fields of those announcement videos, and you will see how many people out there look forward all year long to Victober. They're also doing a group read. The hosts are doing a group read of this. They're doing a group read of The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope, which will be a book that's familiar to you if you follow this channel. I have talked about it endlessly. I have done read-alongs of it. I think I've done 2 read-alongs of it over the years. I love it dearly. I just love it dearly. And the hosts are doing a group read and will be guiding that group read on Discord. If I remember, I'll leave a link to all this below. I definitely want to leave a link to all the announcement videos, but if I remember, I'll leave a link to the Discord as well. Although you'll be able to find the link on any of their announcement videos. Discord is a kind of omnium gatherum discussion forum where you can just chime in at any time, and the hosts are going to be active there according to a number of their announcement videos, doing a group read, a couple of chapters a day of The Way We Live Now. It's wonderful. It's the book is wonderful, but the idea of that group read is so wonderful. How I wish I could participate in that. That would be so much fun. And it also tempts me to do a read aloud of The Way We Live Now, or at least another read through, another chapter by chapter read through. We'd have to do a couple of chapters a day to get through the whole thing in 1 month, but it'd be worth it because it's huge, but it's an absolutely terrific novel. So that is Victober for 2023. It's a great group of co-hosts. It's some really interesting prompts if you want to do that. You don't need to. You could read nonfiction for all of Victober if you want. And a great group read. Oh my. If you've never read The Way We Live Now, here you're getting a chance to do a group read with a whole bunch of dedicated Victorianists. And you're not going to have a chance like that every day. So definitely think about joining in on their group read and joining in on that Discord discussion. That sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. So just wanted to make a sort of satellite announcement video here. I'm looking forward to it myself. I don't know exactly what I will do myself for Victober. It could be that what I will do, my original thought when I was thinking, in the beginning of September, I was thinking, Victober's getting closer. The rest of the world might not feel it. The rest of the world is boiling hot, but Victober is getting closer. And I was actually thinking that for Victober, I would reread the architectural / archaeological writings of John Ruskin. His big, gigantic book on the stones of Venice, for instance. Just a lot of Ruskin. I would read a lot of Ruskin. But now I'm thinking, I mean, October is going to be a very busy month for the non-booktube part of my life. October is when the major publishers in the U.S. really ramp up their production of exactly the kind of books I read. So maybe a gigantic, ambitious thing in which I read all of Ruskin is probably off the table. So instead, I might do a reread of this. I probably will. I'll probably do a reread of The Way We Live Now. I don't know how many times I've read it, but I'm always up for reading it, especially if I'm nudged by such an illustrious event. So there you go. That is Victober for 2023. I would love you to join in. I'd also love to know, if you join in, what you plan on doing. Are you going to follow the prompts? That would be really interesting if you followed the prompts. This book has a few of those prompts. Right? Class features very strongly in this book. You could almost say, when it comes to New Woman, you could almost say that one of the characters in this book, Lady Carberry, is a new woman. She definitely means to support herself by her pen. She definitely does not have a husband. It definitely means to be standing out in the world on her own in a profession. And when we meet her, she is hustling for that profession. And of course, this book immortalizes the stranger / outsider in the person of Monsieur Melmotte. He is the quintessential stranger and outsider. So you could knock off a lot of the prompts with just this book. And if you haven't read The Way We Live Now, oh my, are you missing a treat. It is just so good. But anyway, that's Victober for this year. Let me know if you plan to participate, what you plan to do. I will wrap this up for now, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.